In the unforgiving expanse of the Old West, where survival often meant turning a blind eye to the desperate and destitute, a filthy stranger arrived in a small, unforgiving town. His ragged clothes and weary eyes sparked mockery from nearly every soul who crossed his path. Laughed at and shunned, he was treated like a shadow best forgotten. But amid the scoffs and harsh whispers, one old widow saw something more than a broken man. She saw a flicker of humanity beneath the grime and despair, something worth saving. While others hurried past, the widow's weathered hands prepared a humble bowl of soup, an act so simple yet so profound in that hardened land. This small gesture of kindness was more than nourishment. It was a quiet rebellion against the cruelty of the frontier, a silent stand for compassion when the world offered little mercy. No one could predict that this act would spark a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of the town and change the course of many lives forever. The stranger's story was hidden beneath layers of dust and pain, but the widow's kindness peeled back the veil. Slowly, whispers began to spread, not just of his past, but of an unlikely strength that lay dormant. It was a story that demanded attention, a tale of courage and secrets that would soon call forth an army, 300 strong, to rally around a man once dismissed and forgotten. This is a story of redemption, of how even in the harshest wilderness, a single act of empathy can ignite hope and bring justice to the forgotten. It reveals the power of seeing beyond appearances and the extraordinary impact one person's kindness can have in a world ruled by suspicion and survival. What happened next is a testament to the hidden heroes of the Old West and the battles fought not just with guns, but with hearts wide open. Stay with me as we uncover the journey of the filthy stranger, the brave widow who refused to turn away, and the army that came to change everything. This tale will challenge what you think you know about strength, loyalty, and the true meaning of courage in a land where every soul fights for a chance to be seen. The filthy stranger's arrival in the dusty frontier town was met with nothing but contempt and scorn. His clothes hung in tatters, his face etched with grime and exhaustion, a living embodiment of every hardship the Old West had to offer. Townsfolk whispered cruel jokes behind his back, mocking his every move as he shuffled down the main street like a ghost from a forgotten past. Children hid behind their mothers' skirts, while hardened men spat on the ground when he passed, unwilling to offer even a glance of sympathy. To most, he was nothing more than a burden, a shadow of misfortune. Yet, amidst this sea of indifference and ridicule, one figure stood apart. An old widow named Martha, her face worn by years of loss and hardship, saw something deeper in the stranger's tired eyes. The years had taught her that appearances could be deceiving, and that true worth was often hidden beneath layers of suffering. Without hesitation, she invited the stranger into her modest home, preparing a simple bowl of soup with hands that had long since mastered kindness as a survival skill. This act, so small yet so radical, was the first step toward a story that would shake the town to its core. Martha's hospitality was met with suspicion from others, who could not understand why she would waste her limited resources on a man they deemed unworthy. Whispers spread quickly, labeling her foolish and naive, warning that her kindness might bring trouble. But Martha held firm, guided by a compassion that had not been dulled by years of hardship. Her decision to help the stranger was not just an act of charity. It was a declaration that even the most forgotten souls deserved dignity and hope. As the stranger ate, the layers of dirt and despair seemed to lift, revealing a man who bore the scars of battles both seen and unseen. He spoke little at first, but his presence carried a quiet strength, a story waiting to be told. Martha listened, sensing that the man was more than he appeared, something that would soon be proven when the past he tried to leave behind began to catch up with him in unexpected ways. In the shadow of the Old West's unforgiving landscape, a single act of kindness was beginning to ripple outward. Unbeknownst to Martha and the townsfolk, the stranger's arrival was the beginning of a chain of events that would call 300 soldiers to the town's doorstep, turning ridicule into reverence and strangers into legends. Word of the stranger's presence spread slowly at first, carried on the wind like a whisper among the hardened souls who called the town home. Some dismissed the tale, others grew curious, and a few began to see the man through a different lens, shaped by Martha's unwavering faith in his worth. As the days passed, the stranger's quiet dignity began to erode the walls of suspicion, replacing it with a cautious respect. But beneath the surface, darker forces stirred, forces that threatened not just the stranger, but the fragile peace of the entire town. The stranger's past was not one easily escaped. Shadows from battles long fought and secrets carefully buried began to emerge, casting long, ominous shapes over the town's dusty streets. It became clear that the man was no mere wanderer. He carried the weight of a cause greater than himself, a history tangled with courage, betrayal, and a fight for justice. Those who once laughed now found themselves watching warily, unsure whether to fear or to stand beside him. Martha's home became a refuge, a place where the stranger could gather strength and share his story with those willing to listen. Slowly, more townsfolk dared to cross the threshold, drawn by the truth beneath the grime and the promise of something greater than the daily struggle for survival. The widow's act of kindness had become a beacon, attracting those yearning for hope and a chance to be part of a cause that transcended the harshness of their world. As the stranger's tale unfolded, it became evident that an army was coming. 300 soldiers marching not just in support of a man, but for the ideals he represented. The news sent shockwaves through the town, stirring a mixture of awe, fear, and anticipation. What had begun as a simple act of compassion was fast becoming a pivotal moment in the unfolding history of the frontier. The town prepared itself for what was to come, caught between disbelief and the stirring hope that the arrival of this army might bring change. And in the heart of it all, the old widow and the filthy stranger stood together, symbols of resilience, kindness, and the unyielding spirit of the Old West. The morning sun cast long shadows across the town as preparations began in earnest. The once dismissive townsfolk, now awakened to the stranger's true worth, moved with a newfound urgency and respect. Shops closed early, doors were barred against unknown threats, and whispers of the approaching army stirred nerves and hope alike. Among them, the old widow Martha moved quietly, her heart steady but heavy with the knowledge that the moment of reckoning was near. The stranger, once a figure of scorn, was now a man of mystery and courage. As he stood beside Martha, his eyes revealed a lifetime of battles fought in silence, battles that had taken more than just his peace. The townspeople, once ready to cast him out, now looked to him for strength, hope, and a promise of justice in a land often ruled by lawlessness. His story became their story, binding them in ways no one could have imagined just days before. With the first distant rumble of hooves, the town held its breath. 300 soldiers rode over the hills, their flags billowing in the wind, a force of order and vengeance that changed the very air. Their arrival was more than military might. It was a declaration that the forgotten stranger was a man worthy of protection and respect. The soldiers' leader, a man whose reputation for justice preceded him, dismounted with a solemn nod toward the widow and the stranger. Tensions ran high as the soldiers took control, their presence both a shield and a warning. The outlaws and corrupt forces that had long preyed on the region were now confronted with a unity they had never anticipated. What had started with a simple bowl of soup and a quiet act of kindness had transformed into a powerful movement for justice, fueled by the strength of one widow's compassion and a stranger's untold story. That night, the town gathered under the stars, united not by fear but by hope. Around crackling fires, stories were shared and bonds forged. Martha's soup was remembered not just as nourishment, but as the spark that ignited a revolution in a place where hope was as rare as water. The filthy stranger was no longer alone. He was a beacon, a symbol of courage that had brought 300 soldiers to a dusty town where laughter had once been cruel. As dawn broke, the stranger stood on the steps of the old town hall, facing a crowd that had once jeered but now listened in reverent silence. His voice, once quiet and reserved, carried the weight of truth and conviction. He spoke of battles fought not just with guns but with hearts, of justice denied and reclaimed, and of the unyielding power of kindness that had changed his fate. The soldiers stood behind him, their presence a living testament to the power of loyalty and courage. The widow Martha watched from the crowd, her eyes shining with pride and tears. Her simple act of feeding a man in need had blossomed into something far greater, a movement that reminded the Old West that even in its wildest days, humanity could triumph over cruelty. She knew that the journey was far from over, but this moment marked a turning point, a new chapter written by those who refused to abandon hope. The soldiers shared stories of their own, tales of loyalty and sacrifice that echoed the stranger's message. They spoke of the harsh realities of the frontier and the price of justice, reminding the townsfolk that true strength was born from unity and resilience. The crowd, once fractured by fear and suspicion, found solidarity in their shared purpose, their hearts aligned with a cause greater than themselves. Outlaws lurking beyond the town's edge grew wary, their grip loosening as the tides of justice turned. The arrival of 300 soldiers was not just a show of force, but a signal that the era of lawlessness was waning. The story of the filthy stranger and the widow's kindness became a legend whispered across the plains, inspiring others to stand for what was right, no matter the odds. In that dusty town, under a vast western sky, a new legacy was born, a legacy forged by compassion, courage, and the unbreakable bonds of a community awakened. The laughter that once mocked the stranger was replaced by cheers for a hero, and the simple soup shared by an old widow became the symbol of a revolution that changed the course of the Old West forever. In the days that followed, the town was transformed by a renewed spirit of hope and determination. The once fractured community now stood united, bound together by the story of the filthy stranger and the widow whose kindness had sparked a movement. The soldiers remained, not just as protectors, but as allies helping to rebuild trust and order where chaos had reigned. Together, they set about restoring the town, brick by brick, heart by heart. Martha's humble home became a gathering place for stories and plans, a symbol of what kindness and courage could accomplish even in the harshest of environments. The stranger, once an outcast, now walked with a purpose that inspired those around him. His past was no longer a shackle, but a foundation on which new bonds of friendship and loyalty were built. Through his actions and those of the soldiers, the town began to believe in the possibility of a better future. Yet, the road ahead was still fraught with challenges. The outlaws who once ruled the surrounding lands were not easily vanquished, and their resentment simmered beneath the surface. But the people had changed. They had tasted the power of unity and compassion, and their resolve was stronger than ever. The soldiers prepared for what might come, ready to defend not just the town, but the ideals that had brought them together. The widow's simple act of giving soup had grown into a beacon that illuminated the darkest corners of the Old West. It was a reminder that even the smallest gestures could ripple outward and reshape lives. For those who had laughed at the filthy stranger, the lesson was clear. Never underestimate the power of kindness and the strength hidden beneath a weary exterior. As the sun set over the rugged horizon, the town stood tall, its people forever changed. The stranger and the widow, once solitary figures on the edge of society, had become legends, a testament to the enduring spirit of the frontier and the transformative power of compassion in a world too often hardened by survival. The stranger's presence in the town became a symbol of redemption, a living proof that even the most broken among us can rise with the support of others. His courage in sharing his story opened doors for others to do the same, breaking down walls of mistrust and fear that had long isolated the community. The soldiers, too, found a new sense of purpose, becoming more than just warriors. They became guardians of hope and justice. Martha, the old widow, continued to embody the heart of the town. Her generosity and unwavering faith reminded everyone that true strength was not in muscle or weapons, but in the capacity to care for one another. Her simple act of kindness had not only saved a man, but it sparked a revolution of compassion that resonated far beyond the dusty streets they called home. The town's transformation inspired neighboring settlements, sending ripples of change across the frontier. Stories of the filthy stranger and the 300 soldiers spread, encouraging others to stand for justice and humanity in a world often ruled by harshness and fear. It was a new era, one where hope took root in the most unlikely places. Despite the challenges that still lay ahead, the community faced the future with confidence and unity. They knew that together, bound by shared trials and triumphs, they could withstand whatever storms the Old West might bring. The legacy of kindness and courage that began with a bowl of soup had become a guiding light in the darkness. And so, the tale of the filthy stranger and the old widow lived on, a powerful reminder that in the wild, unforgiving landscape of the frontier, the greatest victories are won not by guns alone, but by hearts willing to believe in the impossible. The bond between the stranger and the widow deepened as they faced the challenges of rebuilding a town once marked by division and suspicion. Each day brought new trials, scarce resources, lingering threats from outlaws, and the constant test of trust among neighbors. Yet, through it all, Martha's unwavering kindness and the stranger's quiet resilience inspired those around them to hold fast to hope. Their partnership became a living example of what could be achieved when hearts aligned in compassion. The 300 soldiers remained a formidable presence, but more importantly, they became teachers and protectors. They trained the townsfolk, helping them defend their homes and nurture the fragile peace that had been won. Stories of bravery and sacrifice spread like wildfire, reminding everyone that the frontier was not just a place of hardship, but a land where ordinary people could rise to extraordinary heights. The soldiers' arrival was not the end of the struggle, but the beginning of a new chapter in the town's legacy. Children, once fearful and withdrawn, now played freely in the streets, their laughter ringing through the air like a balm for wounded souls. The stranger took time to teach the youth lessons beyond survival, lessons about honor, courage, and the importance of standing together. The widow's soup kitchen grew, feeding not only bodies but spirits, fostering a community where no one was left to face darkness alone. Together, they planted the seeds of a future filled with promise. Whispers of the town's transformation reached far and wide, drawing visitors who came not only to witness the change, but to learn from it. The frontier, known for its harshness, was slowly becoming a place where humanity could thrive amidst adversity. The legacy of the filthy stranger and the old widow was no longer a secret, but a shining example of the power of empathy and unity in the Wild West. As seasons passed, the town flourished, proving that even the most desolate places could bloom when nurtured by kindness and courage. The stranger and Martha stood side by side, symbols of resilience and hope, a reminder that sometimes it takes just one act of compassion to ignite a revolution that changes lives forever. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, the town gathered to celebrate their survival and newfound strength. Around crackling fires, stories were told, stories of battles fought, friendships forged, and lives saved by the simple kindness of a widow's soup and a stranger's determination. The air was thick with gratitude and the unspoken promise to protect what they had built together. The stranger, now a revered figure, reflected quietly on the journey that had brought him from the edge of despair to the heart of the community. His past scars no longer defined him. Instead, they became the foundation for the man he had become, a beacon of hope and a living testament to redemption. Martha's faith and compassion had been the light guiding him through the darkest nights, and together, they had kindled a flame that refused to be extinguished. The soldiers prepared to depart, their mission complete, but their bonds with the town unbroken. They left behind more than protection. They left a legacy of honor and unity that would endure long after their horses had disappeared over the hills. The townsfolk stood taller, their spirits strengthened by the knowledge that together they had faced the impossible and won. But beyond the celebration and rebuilding, the greatest victory was the transformation within each heart. The laughter that once mocked the filthy stranger was replaced by cheers of admiration and respect. The widow's simple act of kindness had blossomed into a legacy that changed not only a town, but the very spirit of the Old West. As night fell, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if bearing witness to a story that would be told for generations. A story of compassion, courage, and the unyielding power of human connection in the wild frontier. As the seasons turned and the rugged frontier settled into a new rhythm, the story of the filthy stranger and the old widow became the heartbeat of the town. Their journey from rejection to reverence was shared around every hearth, a tale that reminded all who heard it that even in the wildest, harshest places, kindness could plant seeds of change. The town itself seemed to breathe with newfound life, its streets filled with a sense of hope that had long been absent. The widow Martha, once a solitary figure marked by loss, was now the revered matriarch of a community reborn. Her hands, which had offered a simple bowl of soup, had sown the roots of a legacy that went far beyond the land. She taught the townsfolk that true strength was found in compassion, and that even the smallest acts could spark revolutions. Her story became a beacon for others lost in the unforgiving wilderness. The stranger, too, transformed from outcast to hero, embodying the resilience of those who refuse to be defined by their pasts. His courage and humility inspired generations, proving that redemption was not only possible but powerful. Together, he and Martha stood as living proof that the harsh frontier could be softened by hearts willing to believe in hope and humanity. Nearby settlements heard of the transformation and came seeking guidance, eager to learn how a town once on the brink of despair had become a symbol of unity and justice. The legacy of 300 soldiers, a widow's kindness, and a stranger's courage spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of change across the frontier. It was a reminder that even in a land ruled by survival, the human spirit could triumph. And so, the tale of the filthy stranger and the old widow was etched into the history of the Old West, a story passed down from one generation to the next, reminding all who heard it that no matter how harsh the world may seem, the seeds of kindness and courage will always find a way to grow. In the twilight of their years, Martha and the stranger often sat beneath the vast western sky, reflecting on the journey that had changed their lives and countless others. They spoke not of battles won or armies rallied, but of the quiet moments, the shared meals, the acts of mercy, the simple trust that had sparked a movement. Their story was not just one of survival, but of transformation, proving that even the most broken souls could find healing and purpose. The town continued to thrive, its streets alive with laughter and hope. The children played where outlaws once lurked, and families built futures once thought impossible. The legacy of kindness and bravery lived on in every corner, a testament to the power of one widow's faith and a stranger's courage. It was a new era for the Old West, one where justice and humanity walked hand in hand. Travelers passing through would stop by the old widow's home and the stranger's humble dwelling, listening to the tale of how a single act of soup changed everything. It was a reminder that no one was beyond redemption, and that sometimes the greatest revolutions start with the simplest acts of compassion. Their story became a legend, inspiring all who sought light in the darkest of times. The 300 soldiers who had come to the town's aid were long gone, but their spirit remained woven into the fabric of the community. Their arrival marked the turning point from fear to hope, from isolation to unity. The frontier had been tamed not by force alone, but by the strength of hearts willing to fight for what was right. And so, beneath the endless sky of the Old West, the story of the filthy stranger and the old widow lives on, a timeless reminder that compassion can change destinies, courage can inspire nations, and love will always find a way to triumph in the wildest of lands. As we bring this incredible story to a close, it becomes clear that the true power of the Old West was not just in the shootouts or the rugged landscapes, but in the courage to show kindness when the world expected cruelty. The filthy stranger and the old widow teach us that even in the harshest environments, a single act of compassion can ripple outward and transform entire communities. Their journey reminds us that hope often starts with one brave heart willing to give without expecting anything in return. This story challenges us to look beyond appearances and judgments, to recognize the humanity in those who seem broken or forgotten. It shows that strength is not measured by what we possess or how we fight, but by how deeply we care for others and how fiercely we protect the vulnerable. In a world that can feel cold and unforgiving, their legacy lights the way, proving that empathy and courage are timeless virtues that can change destinies. Let this tale inspire you to plant your own seeds of kindness in the lives around you. Remember, the smallest gestures, a warm meal, a listening ear, an open heart, can ignite hope where it seems lost. When communities come together, united by compassion and purpose, they become unstoppable forces for good. The Old West was wild, but it was also a place where miracles happened, sparked by ordinary people making extraordinary choices. If this story moved you, take a moment now to reflect and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice could inspire someone else to believe in the power of kindness. And if you want to explore more stories that touch the heart and stir the soul, be sure to subscribe and join our community. Together, we uncover the lessons of the past that guide us to a better future. Thank you for watching and being part of this journey. May the courage of the filthy stranger and the compassion of the old widow stay with you, reminding you that no matter how tough the world may seem, hope and love will always find a way to shine through.